4:10 a.m. We got a massive problem. We went approximately 40 to 45 minutes without concrete. This probably never even happens to home builders. I get a call from the supplier. He calls me and says, hey, I gotta let you know about a little problem. Welcome back to my $2.2 million Spec Home Build project. This is a project where I'm attempting to build just my 4th home build ever. It's gonna be a luxury home that I'm gonna sell for $2.2 million and profit over 750 G's. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty damn good to me. Right now we're on day number 10. Day 1 through day 9, we did all the site prep. We cleared this land, which used to be completely wooded. It's 1.5 acres in size, and we took out hundreds and hundreds of trees. We also built up a 3-foot tall select fill dirt pad, all in preparation for today. Day number 10, where we're starting the concrete slab on grade foundation. Now this isn't just any foundation, or at least to me it's not, because to start, it's the largest foundation I'm attempting to build, standing at 5,521 square feet. Also, it's the first time I'm attempting to build a post-tension design. Typically, I've always went the conventional route, the safe route, paid extra money to install so much steel rebar into the foundation that it can't fail. But in this project, I decided to make a risky decision, a strategic decision, all in an effort to save around 30 to 35% cost on this trade alone, which should equate to savings of over $15,000 by going with a riskier post-tension design. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how exactly I'm building an engineered post-tension foundation, step by step. And then of course, at the end of the video, I'll reveal all of the costs associated down to the penny to see if I can meet my budget of spending $45,000 or less on this concrete foundation. Let's get in the video. So here in a second, we're gonna dive deep into the actual structural blueprints that make up the design for this future post-tension foundation that were designed by a licensed structural engineer. But before we do that, I wanna take a second and give a high-level overview of what a post-tension slab-on-grade foundation is and how it's different from a conventional design. A post-tension slab-on-grade is a type of concrete foundation where steel cables or tendons are laid inside the slab and tightened after the concrete has cured. This tensioning process adds strength and helps the slab resist cracking. So maybe if you're thinking about doing a concrete floor for your home, might be a good choice for you. How is that different from a conventional design? In a conventional slab, steel rebar is placed into the foundation, but it is never tight. It is passive. In a post-tension slab, the steel cables are actively tightened or stressed, which compresses the concrete and makes it much stronger and more flexible. As a result, post-tension slabs can be thinner, use less concrete material, use less rebar, which also equals less labor, and span over poor soil more effectively than conventional slabs. As it just mentioned, less concrete, less rebar, less labor, therefore 10 to 15% in savings just based on the design alone, which is the main reason I decided to go with post-tension for this project, because I would love to see some 15% savings, but also it's something that I wanted to challenge myself and diversify and see if it's something that I want to continue to use and replicate and implement into my building practices and future home builds to continue to see 15% cost savings. Just to briefly explain, another way that I'm also seeing another 10 to 15% savings on top of the design choice is by eliminating a turnkey foundation contractor. I'm not hiring ABC Foundation Company, who's been in business for 20 years, to come out here and take care of the entire foundation for me, material and labor, turnkey, and give me a warranty at the end. Instead, I'm choosing a little more risky route, taking on a little more responsibility, and doing this concrete foundation piecemeal or labor only. That means I'm going to be working with 3 or 4 different suppliers: form board supplier, makeup and cable supplier, ready mix supplier, and then also about 4 different subcontractors: the form board subcontractor, the makeup subcontractor, the finish subcontractor, also a service for the concrete boom truck to pump all the truck into the foundation. So that's the main reason I decided to go with a post-tension foundation, is because of the cost saving, less material, less labor, less money. And I would love to save an extra 10 to 15K, put that right in my back pocket. So that's what a post-tension slab is, and that's why I decided to go with it. Now, 2 days ago, we got the form boards installed around the entire perimeter of the foundation, and yesterday, the plumber showed up and completed the underground plumbing. This is the plumbing that runs through the concrete foundation and out to the future septic system. These lines catch all the drains from the toilets, the sinks, the tub, the showers, and the appliances. And today, we are starting the makeup, or the prep work, which consists of installing the vapor barrier, digging the beams, installing the rebar, and the cables or tendons to get ready to pour in Friday, which is only 2 days away. So now let's go check out the building plans on the building plans table with the makeup contractor that I've hired to handle this part of the project. Let's go. So here we are in the field office on my custom fabricated desk, and we're going to take a look at the engineered structural drawings that I had designed by a licensed structural engineer for the foundation and framing for this house. We're going to have to follow this set of of plans to a T, because in the end I want to have an engineered slab and an engineered framed house, and that doesn't get met unless we build everything exactly to the specs and instructions laid out by the structural engineer. So we're going to build it to these specs, and I'm going to have the structural engineer come out and perform inspections periodically at certain stages of the process to make sure we're meeting all the specs, so in the end we do everything correctly. And this set of blueprints is the structural drawings, and it consists of like 15 pages, and they're on like 30-inch wide by 42-inch long paper, and they cost about $10 per page to print out. So whenever you add it all up, just for one set of plans, it's about $80 to $100 to print out this set of plans alone, and you add that up by 10 different sets of plans to give to the different foundation crews, the plumbers, the electricians, the framers, etc. You're going to be paying around $1,000 in printing plans alone whenever you go to build a house, if you really do it the right way, print hard copies and hand them out to every sub so that everybody is on the exact same page. So let's take a look at the foundation plan, and the foundation plan consists of 3 pages. The first page being the foundation plan, the second page being the slab embedment plan or beam plan, and the third page being the details page. Let's take a look at the foundation plan. Page 1. First thing we're going to look at is, of course, it shows the shape of the foundation, and it really shows everything 100%, all the measurements, all the details, but we're going to point our eyes over here to the left. Now obviously it would take a very long time to go through these plans in detail, so I'm going to go through them with a high-level overview, starting with the slab schedule. This is going to be a 4-inch thick slab, and it is going to have 1/2 inch post-tension tendons, and it says for the spacing, look at the slab. Well, you can see all of the post-tension cables running across the slab, and it says look at them, look at this plan to determine the spacing for those tendons. Now let's look at another important aspect, which is the beam schedule. The beams on this foundation are going to be 12 inches wide and 30 inches deep, which is pretty large for a residential foundation, and that's something that I really want to turn my eyes to and look at immediately when I get this set of plans back, because that is something that really affects the cost of a foundation. Standard is probably 10 inches wide by 24 inches deep, or maybe 12 inches wide, 24 inches deep, but 12 inches wide by 30 inches deep, obviously that's a deeper beam, and that requires more concrete, a lot larger amount of concrete, a larger amount of cubic feet in concrete, a larger volume in concrete. Therefore, it's much more expensive to pour all that in material. It adds up quickly. So 12 inches wide by 30 inch deep is my beam depth. Now looking at the foundation, you're going to see a bunch of details, but the main things I want to look at are the actual detail callouts. All of the different letters on this page, starting from the top left, we see a bunch of BBB, ADD, ACCC, F, and those detail callouts are all across this page. You see letters everywhere, and all of those details are actually located on page 3. So you may look at it and say, D, what the heck is a D? Well, it's not labeled on this page. You have to turn to page 3, look at D, and D for this plan is a drop at an interior beam, and it shows the details on exactly how to build that beam, where the chairs go, where the tendons go, 6 inches or less drop. See slab schedule on sheet S1 for thickness. So it tells you exactly all the details of how to build that specific detail in each location throughout the foundation. So we have the details layout, we have the measurements of all the foundation, we have the beam placement just for reference, and some other details. So that's a foundation plan. Next is the slab embedment plan, and this shows the beam location and layout. And of course the makeup contractor will use this beam plan to use the trencher, use the excavator to start digging the 12-inch wide by 30-inch deep beams. And then of course page 3 is the detail page, which most of these details are pretty standard. You can see there's probably about 20 different details on this set of plans, meaning that it's kind of copy and paste for the engineer, but only about 5 to 8 of those details on page 3 actually are applicable to my specific foundation plan. And that is the set of plans that we're going to be using and following the very detailed instructions from the engineer to make sure that in the end we have a engineered post-tension slab on grade foundation. We still have a little bit of work to do to finish up the makeup work for this foundation, and then I'm going to have the engineer come out and perform an inspection and hopefully pass so that we can pour this thing Friday morning at 4 a.m. Let's go. The engineer just showed up to do the inspection on the slab, so let's see if we pass or fail. I don't think it's really something that's pass or fail. It's more so like, hey, you need to fix these 7 or 8 or a couple remaining things, and then you'll pass and you'll be good to go. So inspector's here, taking a look at everything, see if we can learn something. That actually went really well. We got somewhat of a preliminary approval. There was maybe 4 or 5 different areas that Jesus has to make some corrections. So it just adds extra insurance, makes me feel a lot more confident as a builder that I have a qualified engineer out here doing the inspection, making sure everything is completed per specs, and I'm not just relying on a subcontractor who, you know, yes, I trust to do the job right, but he's not the engineer. So it adds a good feeling down in my gut knowing that everything is done completely correct when I have an engineer slab. When this thing is all completed, as long as the pour goes well tomorrow, there's about 5 corrections that Jesus is going to be making. We're going to be sending photos to the engineer, and then he is going to be texting back the approval. There's 1 or 2 areas like this where the slab thickness was greater than 4 inches, is more like a foot, which kind of sucks for me because that costs more in concrete. But we have to add some more rebar where the slab is too thick, maybe here, there, another area over there. Some other very minor corrections. Take photos of that, send it to the inspector, and get the final approval. After 4 days, the foundation is completely prepped and ready to pour in 200 yards of concrete ready mix. And I don't know exactly how many yards I'm going to order at this point. My last slab was 5,000 square feet and it took 154 yards of concrete ready mix, but the beams were 12 by 24. Here the beams are 12 by 30. Therefore it's going to require more volume of concrete. So given my last one was 154, I'm probably going to order 180 to 200 yards, which is a lot of concrete. At least in my mind, I'm just thinking, damn, that's going to be expensive. But I have to submit a very accurate estimation to the concrete supplier for one main reason, and that is we're starting this pour tomorrow at 4 a.m. I have the first pour on the schedule. They have 12 trucks running tomorrow. So they're going to be using all their trucks specifically for this pour in the morning. Now, once we get to the number that I estimated for, they're going to stop and they're going to start sending those trucks elsewhere all over the area. And if we come up 30 yards, 40 yards, or 50 yards short, that means they're going to have to send another 3, 4, 5 trucks, which is going to cause a delay, take time, and it's going to cause this pour that should be finished by probably about 7 or 8 a.m. tomorrow morning to drag out until maybe 9, 10, or 11, which is going to make my labor unhappy, my labor subcontractor, as well as it could affect the quality of the pour because, of course, the pour is monolithic and all needs to be poured in at once. So I need to do some calculations and see exactly how many I'm going to order, but nevertheless, the makeup work is now completely finished, completely prepped for the pour, and like I said, we completed all of this makeup work exactly to the engineer specifications so that in the end, we can have a engineered concrete slab on grade foundation. Now, honestly, I don't know what that really does besides give me a little bit of a selling point in the end because I'm sure not everybody in here is doing a engineered slab on grade foundation. I'll be able to use that as a selling point and say, hey, the slab was designed by an engineer and also inspected by an engineer, therefore it's an engineered foundation. Same for the framing. So hopefully it gives me a little bit of a selling point in the end whenever this project is finished. But honestly, it does give me a little bit of a peace of mind that an engineer came out here and provided an inspection and actually gave us about 8 corrections we had to make to be able to get the approval. So if I didn't ever get that inspection, there would probably be 8 places in the foundation that did not meet the engineer spec. So it gives me a little bit of peace of mind knowing that everything is going to be done exactly to the engineer specs and done the most correct way possible. The engineer inspection process went pretty seamless. I just had to send about 8 to 10 photos of the completed corrections to him, and he sent me a hard copy approval with the box check approved. So now nothing left to do but get one more probably short sleep, and I'll be back out here bright and early, or should I say dark and early, tomorrow at probably about 3 a.m. So I'm kind of red eyed already because all I do is work, but see you in the morning. Game day, 4:10 a.m. The crew's here, big boom truck is here, first 2 concrete trucks are here, and we are all ready to go. You probably wonder, why are you pouring this slab at 4 a.m.? That's insane. Well, the truth is, here in Houston, it's the end of May, and temperatures are getting to like 95 degrees by like 10 a.m. And that does 2 things. A, it makes the crew super tired and super hot because this is a very labor-intensive job to be able to spread out 200 yards of concrete. It's a very difficult material to work with, and you gotta know what you're doing. And if you're fighting the heat, well, of course, that's gonna make the job a lot harder just by doing the physical labor. But also, I hear the concrete, so we got it going in now. Also, working with concrete whenever the temperatures are hot, the sun is beaming on it, it causes that concrete to set up much faster, making the finished job much more difficult, giving you less time to work with the material because it gets hard very fast. So we're doing it at 4 a.m. so that the guys can have a nice, cool working environment and perform at a high level, do a good job on the finished work, but also so that the concrete doesn't set up fast, make the material much easier to work with and finish, which is the whole point of today, to finish the concrete material. So starting at 4:10 a.m., 200 yard plus pour. We should have the pour finished hopefully by about 7:30. By 8:30, probably be wrapped up and everyone out of here whenever the rest of the world is waking up and getting ready for their work day. So let's get this thing poured. Let's go, baby. We got a massive fucking problem. We've got about 6 trucks in the ground, and I just got a call from the salesman here at the concrete supplier. I mean, what are the odds? This is my 4th foundation pour ever. This probably never even happens to home builders. They're out there in Korea that build probably 200 homes. I get a call from the supplier. Honestly, I can't even believe it, but he calls me and says, hey, I gotta let you know about a little problem. Okay, what? He said, the plant is broke. The plant that creates and mixes all the material and loads it into these big mixing trucks to then deliver it here and dump it out in the foundation. Well, so far, I'm expecting to have 20 to 22 trucks. We only have 6 trucks in the ground. And he said we have to make a repair at the plant and inspect it, try it out. If it works, then we're gonna be good. But if it doesn't work, I really may be screwed. So I'm just kind of waiting a little anxiously to see what is gonna really go on here, because we really need the concrete to come so that we can finish, of course. And we have a couple options. So if it's broke, the salesman believes that they can get the concrete from another plant and we should be able to finish the pour without a problem, or at least he says. You know, some people overpromise and underdeliver, so we'll see exactly how that goes if that's the case. Or if the concrete, it gets back up and running, then we'll be good to go. But regardless, concrete is not something that you can wait on. It's something that you want to keep going so that it can be a monolithic pour. Right now we have 60 yards in, which I'm a little happy about, because in the instance a disaster really does come, we could probably cut out this part of the foundation. I would have a site prep subcontractor, someone come back with heavy machines, break all this up, haul it out of here. It'd be pretty expensive, of course, and then I would have to really start back from nothing. Essentially, rebuild this side of the foundation. But at least the problem has came up with only 60 yards out of the full 220 in. So that means only about 20% of the foundation is in, and we'd be able to limit the loss to tens of thousands of dollars for sure. Also, I'm thinking, okay, I got insurance on the project, that's good. Would the concrete plant company cover this? Of course, if they didn't, that would probably be some legal problems, so I'm not even trying to think that far ahead. I'm just hoping for the best on this next phone call. Let's see what the salesman says. What's the word?
All right, bud, you're uploading. We got one loading the second one now, so.
Repair was good?
Yep, it's good, so.
For now?
On the road. Yeah, right. Well, the good thing is our welder's gonna stay there and just watch it. But yeah, we got one loaded on the way, and the second one's loading now.
Okay, perfect. You got a second to talk? I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Has it happened where this has happened and it's like, I don't know, maybe another hour, the thing may have problems, you know, structurally. So what's the solution there if that happens?
I'd call another concrete company, get them to let us load out of their plant.
And what if you couldn't get one here within an hour and a half, and then, you know, we got cold joint, whatever, structural integrity was compromised, then what?
We are not gonna talk about that right.
Okay, I gotcha. Well, shit, it's got been a little reality for me for a minute, so I was like, my 4th foundation ever, what's the odds? But hey, we still got a long ass ways to go, so let's get them here. Yeah. But okay, sounds good. Appreciate the call.
All right, buddy. Bye.
Thank God, I did not want to deal with it. Honestly, it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, because I would have, I mean, obviously I would have liked to avoid it, but to be able to go through that process and learn from it and experience that, tearing all this out and seeing what would even happen. Worst case in the world is probably foundation failure at this point, and then having to tear it out and rebuild it. Yeah, that's probably the worst. Or maybe even building the entire frame and we don't do shear walls. We don't put up the shear walls until after the frame is fully finished here in my area. You build the whole stick frame start to finish, then have like a tornado or a hurricane come through and blow it all down. That's happened too. So this is probably the worst thing that could happen, and I honestly would have enjoyed to go through the process, as crazy as that sounds. I know I would have learned so much from it, and I would have known what is the worst thing that could happen to me throughout this process. I've already gone through it. I've already navigated it. I know what that looks like, and it would have been cool to record all of it for you guys, because it would have been a show. Although, obviously, I'm very happy to have avoided it, at least up to this point. Now, we still got a long ways to go with a plant that just got some sort of temporary repair, I'm sure. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, but next truck should be here in 20 minutes. First truck after the repair just showed up. It's now 5:35. I believe the last little bit of concrete was dumped out in between 4:50 and 5 o'clock, so that means we went approximately 40 to 45 minutes without concrete. But I'm very happy to see that truck here. Hopefully the rest of them keep coming. We still got a long ways to go, and we're very lucky, honestly, because we started to pour in the morning. If this happened to be even 9 or 10 o'clock here in the Houston area, this would be a problem. This would have created what's called a cold joint, and I would have a true situation sensation on my hands. And I'll tell you what a cold joint is. So whenever you're pouring a foundation, this is obviously fresh concrete, right? Well, if it was hot outside, all of this concrete would have cured. It would have hardened. And the whole idea and design behind this is called a monolithic pour, meaning everything gets poured in, like you fill it up immediately, and then it all cures as one hard foundation. Well, the problem here is, and I'm sure this happens a lot, is there's problems in construction, there's delays with the supplier, the plant breaks down, whatever, the truck gets in a wreck, and sometimes when foundations are getting poured, they don't all necessarily get poured in a monolithic pour as designed. Now, I'm sure that most of the time all goes well, but sometimes situations happen like this, and whenever you dump in the new fresh concrete, if the concrete that was here already cured, that new fresh concrete is not going to be a monolithic pour. It's not going to cure with the other concrete that is already set up. Therefore, that creates a cold joint on the outline of where the other concrete was. And that cold joint can cause problems because, again, it didn't all cure together. It can cause problems in the future. It may cause problems whenever they stress these cables. There may be a blowout, or the concrete finisher said it would probably be good for 10 years. Maybe thereafter it would be a problem, but for me, or him, he said, whenever I do the finish, you're gonna notice there's a little bit of unlevelness where that cold joint is because it's impossible to finish it all perfectly and smoothly. But nevertheless, let's get through the rest of this day without a problem, and then we can celebrate. Thank God. So this is the very final truck. I had to order a total of 220 yards. These trucks carry 10 yards each, so that's 22 total trucks. Whenever you pour a foundation, you really need to estimate how much concrete you want to order, because the better your accurate estimate is, the more accurate amount of trucks they can send out here. You can start pouring very fast. Ideally, if you have like a 225 yard pour, you want to order 220 and then kind of gauge how much you need at the end and say, okay, send me a kicker truck with 5 yards left in it so that you can save as much money as possible. We kind of did that on this pour. I estimated for 200. As I got throughout the pour, I said, hey, go ahead and send 210. And then as I got closer to the end, I said, go ahead and send 220. And we probably ended up only installing about 217, 216, because there's a little bit left in the truck, I believe. And therefore, I probably wasted about 2 yards at $130 a yard. It's a waste of probably $250 to $300. But nevertheless, it's better to get it all done rather than have to wait on a whole nother truck and probably pay a delivery fee on that truck as well for the kicker. So the pour did go well, although let me check the time because it did not go as planned by any means. It's right now 9:45. Me, the trucks, everybody is supposed to be out of here by 9 o'clock, and the crew was just supposed to be returning after it dries to do the finish here in a couple hours, but that's not the case. It's 9:40. We intended on having the pour completely finished by probably about 6:30, because you can do about 200 yards on a pour like this if the concrete's coming fast in the matter of about 2 hours. So started at 4, we should have been done by 6:30, and in reality, here we are at 9:40. And that is because obviously the problem happened where the plant broke down, caused us a 40-minute delay over there, and then again, apparently the plant broke down again. They got it up and running to deliver these last 2 yards. But nevertheless, monolithic pour, I feel super confident about how it went. Everything cured all together, monolithic, like it was designed to. And at this point, all that's left is to do the finish work. Now, there's a couple details I want to point out on the finish work and kind of what's taking place today that really pertain to the plans to make sure that we do this very last step correctly. So let's go check it out and I'll show you what I got. So now that we're on to the finish work, I just wanted to go over a couple things that are here in the structural foundation plan that pertain to the work we did today. Starting with the concrete ready mix. The plan specified needs to be, and the engineer specified, it needs to be a 3,000 PSI concrete, which that means how strong it is. 3,000 is the strength. So 3,000 PSI, and it also needs to be delivered in a 5-inch slump. You can perform a slump test on this mix. You put it in a certain container, dump it out, and it should stand 5 inches tall. That means it's a 5 slump. Now, the more wet it is, the more water it has in it, the water to concrete ratio. You do that slump test, that slump is going to go down to maybe a 3 or a 2. Or if it has a 10-inch slump, obviously it's going to be fairly dry concrete. It's not going to have a lot of water. There's a couple other things here in the plans that I want to talk about. Let's start with these anchor bolts. The plans specify these anchor bolts need to be placed and embedded in the concrete, 4-foot spacing. So every 4 foot there's a anchor, as well as they need to be within 12 inches of the corner. So here's a corner, there's one about less than 12 inches from each corner. Something I kind of dropped the ball on, but it's not that really big of a deal, is pertaining to the steel framing. This is the first house that I've ever built or am building that has steel framing in it. Whenever we go to start the framing, we're going to start with steel instead of wood. That's what has to become first. And there is 2 massive massive beams that I'm aware of. I need to look into it. 2 massive steel beams, one that goes all the way across the living room and kitchen because of the span is so wide, as well as it continues out onto the outdoor patio, and that is to support the patio roof, because I did not want to do a post on the patio roof to hold it up because I felt like that would obstruct the view. Instead, we're doing a cantilever design, which we'll get into it more in the future when we start the framing, and that is going to essentially be like a floating roof on the back patio. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to do the steel framing and learn about that process. But those steel beams have to be supported with steel columns, 4-inch by 4-inch steel columns. And of course, those columns have to be anchored to the foundation. Well, I had 2 options. Either I could embed steel plate into the foundation here today on the pour day, and that would have required me to go get the steel plates and have this contractor embed them in the right locations, but I did not do that. Another option is to install them after the foundation is completely finished, and the steel contractor can come out with those steel plates, drill down to the necessary depth in the foundation, and then set them in a epoxy, which will be very strong, accomplish the same result. And that's the option I'm going with, just because I've never did steel framing before, and I didn't feel like moving on to that phase and preparing for that and then worry about that after the fact. There's a couple more things. I wanted to show what shower pans look like right now. Right now, we floated all the shower pans with 2x6 floats. That means there's a 5.5-inch drop on both of the showers here on the first floor. There's one here in the guest, there's another one in the master. Right now, those are an empty box that is 5.5 inches deeper than the finished floor of the home. That's going to allow us to bring in a mortar bed, get everything sloped correctly when we go to build the showers, and also help us achieve a curbless shower. So there will be no step you'll have to go over into the shower. And in order to do a curbless shower, it all has to be prepared for from the very beginning whenever you're pouring the foundation, if you have any curbless showers wanted on the very first floor. And then lastly is the brick ledge. This whole exterior of the home has brick. Therefore, we had to install 2x6s right here all the way around the edge of the foundation, and that creates what's called a brick ledge. That is essentially the ledge that is going to support all of the very heavy brick that's going to go all the way around the entire house. This is something that has to be installed whenever the form board contractor shows up, as well as, honestly, it does cost extra in concrete material because the foundation is essentially 5.5 inches wider, 360 degrees around this home because it has brick everywhere. So there's added cost besides just doing brick and the labor associated with the brick, but it comes all the way down to the foundation. The pour is now fully finished. The 4 or 5 guys are out there with the finished materials, the finished tools, getting ready to finish this thing as it's drying out now that the sun has came out, and then we'll be moving on to the framing. After just 19 days from the start of this project, the concrete foundation is already in the ground, and that is a great feeling. We've made that much progress in less than 3 weeks, and we can now move on to going vertical and watching the transformation really happen, starting with the steel framing, which is coming up next, and then of course the wood framing. But at this point, we do have a engineered dirt pad. We have a engineered foundation, and we're going to be building an engineered frame for this home, making it a completely engineered and inspected and approved engineered structure, which I think is a little bit of a selling point. I don't see any other builders that are building spec homes in this area marketing their home as a engineered structure. So I think I'll be doing that, but at the very least, if it doesn't help me stand out from the competition, it will help instill confidence in the builder, because if they do some research into me and they say, oh, this is the biggest home you've ever built, or this is only the 4th home you've ever built, if I'm able to provide documentation from the engineer showing that it was engineered from the start, inspected by the engineer, and approved by the engineer, then I'm sure that'll help instill some level of confidence in them being able to purchase the home, showing them I know what I'm doing and also I'm doing everything correctly. So the next phase is going to be the framing, and I can't wait to move on to that. But before we do, let's go over a cost breakdown of every single phase of this concrete foundation. So it took 5 days. We did the forms day 1, underground plumbing day 2. We did 2 days of prep work, and then we poured the very next day. So I completed the foundation in 5 days, no rain, no delays, no problems, and was excited about that, very happy with that. But let's go over the concrete foundation cost breakdown. Starting with the forms and float, that material was $1,930. Basically, it was some 2x4s, 2x6s, and 2x12s. Then we have the forms labor, $1,932. The makeup material, which was the vapor barrier, the rebar, the accessories, the cables from a cable company, was $5,634. Also included in that price was a trip out to the job site after the foundation was finished to stress the cables, $5,634. Next is the makeup labor, $4,140. The pump truck, $2,320. The concrete material, the ready mix, also including a $2,400 $400 credit card fee. Comes to a total of $32,087, by far the most expensive part of this entire process. Finished labor, $2,910 for the crew of about 6 to 7 people to come out here and finish the concrete foundation. Engineered inspection, $499, bringing the total cost to $50,953 for this concrete foundation. That's excluding the engineered inspection of $499, but thought I'd include that. So if you divide the total cost by 5,721 slab square feet, that's a total price of $8.90 per square foot, which I'm not all that proud of because I did get a price from a turnkey foundation subcontractor, and he gave me a price of $9.50 per square foot. So if I would have went with him, I would have paid somewhere around $56,000, and I paid $51,000 doing it myself, so I only saved like $4,000. Was it really worth it? I mean, I wouldn't go back and do it any differently because I enjoyed the process and I learned a lot. If I would have passed it off, I wouldn't have learned all that I did. So I wouldn't trade it and I wouldn't go back, although I only saved $4,000, and I don't really know if it's worth it logistically. But nevertheless, I did save $4K, and we can move on to the framing. So make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're not yet subscribed so you don't miss out on the steel framing video, and also watch me build this entire home start to finish, also including a pool and spa combo in the backyard, trying to profit $750K over the course of the next 6 to 7 months. So hit the subscribe button to watch me do it all. Also, click the link in the top of my description if you're interested in becoming a builder and building projects like this. I have a course, I have a community. You also get the opportunity to work with me one-on-one if you're in the Houston area. And also, if you want to build this exact house yourself, click the other link in my description. You can get the architectural plans, the material list, and also the finishes list of all the finishes I'm going to be installing in this project. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching at this point, obviously you like my channel, so make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment. I see all my comments. I appreciate you for watching this far, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.